There's a group called the Hebrew Israelites that have all this false doctrine.
I am tired of these junk food babies starting churches off of potato chips. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. And drawing more people than you can feed. That's why you're being peeled off to all these other religions, because you don't know who you are.
My ancestors were Igbos from Nigeria. And Igbos are called black Jews, that they're industrious, that they go after things, that they're hard-working people.
That's why people come in and tell you Christianity is the white man's religion, because you don't know who you are. If you knew who you were, they couldn't pass that off on you. Stand up, Dr. Harrison. He's just as much Gentile as I am. He's just as much Gentile as I am. He's just as much Gentile as I am.
Actually, today we will be dealing with the black Hebrew Israelites. I don't think a day goes by when I don't get at least 100 inquiries via email or text or whatever, especially from pastors that are concerned about this movement. I was going to say new movement, but of course it's not new, but this movement of the black Hebrews whose beliefs are a spinoff of the Nation of Islam, Nations of Gods and Earths, the Rastafarians. Y'all have heard me talk about these groups, these people groups in the Truth Behind Hip Hop series. Basically, it's all these groups' beliefs, including some Old Testament beliefs, all kind of combined, just lacking the discipline and, of course, the morality of the Bible.
Herd behavior refers to the behavior of groups of individuals who act together without any planning or informed direction. Individuals often follow the group and try to fall in line with the opinion and behavior of the crowd. This human behavior leads to them being compared to the herd behavior of animals. Understand this, herd behavior, also called as herd mentality or herd instinct, is a widespread tendency of people to do or behave as the crowd do. Now, I want to reiterate this point here. Herd behavior, also called as herd mentality or herd instinct, is a widespread tendency of people to do or behave as the crowds do. So, what is the origin of herd behavior? The term herd behavior originates from the behavior of animals in herds, groups, and flocks. The herd behavior in animals is predominantly seen when a group of animals flee from a predator. The Hebrew Israelites, in this case, are viewed and expressed as the predators. Why? Because the church as a whole has lost its voice when it comes to evangelism. The church used to be the big fish in the pond when it came to evangelism, and now the institution of Christianity is now being questioned. Discussions such as identity and heritage in regards to the Negroes, the church felt the need to sweep it under the rug, and now are being forced to discuss these subjects which they were never prepared to address. See, key doctrines of theologies of their so-called church fathers, such as grace, is being challenged by individuals whom they deemed to be unqualified. This is why we are witnessing the herd behavior among many of the denominations within Christianity. So I want to reiterate this. The herd behavior in animals is predominantly seen when a group of animals flee from a predator. Individuals become part of a group and resort to herd behavior when they feel they cannot voice their opinions alone. In this way, an individual feels more secure by being part of a group, as in the case of animals moving in herds as a precautionary against predators. The cause of herd behavior may have its roots in the man's social conditioning to mimic the behavior of the herd. By nature, man finds it easy to conform rather than being labeled as a deserter or dissenter. Man is mentally conditioned to fall in line with the general opinion of the group, which also saves them the pain of any rejection and doubt. I want to reiterate this. Individuals become part of a group and resort to herd behavior when they feel they cannot voice their opinions alone. Man finds it easy to conform rather than being labeled a dissenter. So, what is the consequences of herd behavior? What is the drawbacks? What is the con of herd behavior? See, herd behavior in humans may be efficient in some ways when some amount of social cohesion can be achieved through group conformity. However, in many instances, herd behavior may have disastrous consequences when groups can go wrong and the individual tends to lose his independence in the absence of exchange of individual views and opinions. There is every chance for the group to commit collective blunders when the herd behavior is spurred by emotions. It can lead to hysterical behaviors as seen in mob violence or violent group demonstrations. The disastrous consequences are the destructive behaviors we are witnessing from many of these leaders who refer to themselves as Christian apologists. Like the young apostle Saul, many are willing to publicly assassinate the character of an entire demographic of people by recklessly and deceptively lumping them into one category by creating a straw man called the Black Hebrew Israelites. And understand this. A straw man is an intentionally misrepresented proportion that is set up because it is easier to defeat than an opponent's real argument. So through this straw man, which carries the name Black Hebrew Israelites, which many prominent leaders in the church is using as the face of what they've labeled as a religious group, in which many leaders are using this straw man to strike fear throughout their community of followers with the goal in keeping the membership of their assemblies intact. So I'll say this again. Individuals tend to lose his independence in the absence of an exchange of individual views and opinions. There is every chance for the group to commit collective blunders when the herd behavior is spurred by emotions. It can lead to hysterical behaviors as seen in mob violence or violent group demonstrations. So what are we witnessing is hysterical behavior from T.D. Jakes, who in one breath announced that his heritage is connected to the Igbos, who in his own words are called Black Jews. And then in another breath, we hear him professing to be a Gentile. We are witnessing hysterical behavior that's fueled by uncontrolled emotions disguised as the Holy Spirit from Pastor G. Craige Lewis. We are seeing destructive demonstrations through mockery by Vocab, Malone, and others who have co-signed to their very questionable behavior.
First of all, Hebrew Israelites are racist.
But this movement of the black Hebrews, whose beliefs are a spinoff of the Nation of Islam, Nations of Gods and Earths, the Rastafarians. Y'all have heard me talk about these groups, these people groups in the Truth Behind Hip Hop series. Basically, it's all these groups' beliefs, including some Old Testament beliefs, all kind of combined, just lacking the discipline and, of course, the morality of the Bible.
I want to turn your attention to a man by the name of Hank Hanegraaff. Now, this is coming directly from his Facebook page called Bible Answer Man. See, Hank Hanegraaff, he is the president of the Christian Research Institute, also known as CRI. CRI is a ministry that exists to provide Christians worldwide with carefully researched information and well-reasoned answers to equip them. I want to turn your attention to one of his Facebook postings titled "The Origin and Insufficiency of the Black Hebrew Israelite Movement" by Jimmy Butts, which is from the Christian Research Journal publication, which is owned by Mr. Hank Hanegraaff himself. Now I want you to listen carefully to the words of G. Craige Lewis and his staff. This is the source of their information in which they are using as talking points in their defense against the Hebrew Israelites.
I was going to say new movement, but of course it's not new. But this movement of the black Hebrews, whose beliefs are a spinoff of the Nation of Islam, Nations of Gods and Earths, the Rastafarians. Y'all have heard me talk about these groups, these people groups in the Truth Behind Hip Hop series. Basically, it's all these groups' beliefs.
Let's do that. I want to read this because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. Now, toward the end of the 19th century, a man named Frank Cherry claimed to receive a vision through which God told him to present the message that African Americans are the true descendants of the biblical Hebrews. Now, this eventually resulted in the establishment of the Church of the Living God, the pillar ground of truth for all nations, which was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and that was around 1886. Now, another significant figure arose during this time, which was William S. Crowdy. And it was during this era of lynching and the rise of Jim Crow that the prophet William Crowdy claimed to receive a revelation that African Americans were the descendants of the ancient Israelites. Now, after receiving this revelation, Crowley founded the Church of God and Saints of Christ Church, and that was about 1896, and that was in Kansas. Now, with that claim, the 10 lost tribes of Israel were the ancestors of black people.
Now, the question is, who wrote this article? Who wrote this article? His name is Pastor Jimmy Butts. He wrote this article in 2016. But the question is he the root? Did he create the talking points in which most Christian apologists is currently using? The answer is no. However, I believe he added to the talking points many are using. And so I want to turn your attention to another publication called Forward. This is an article titled, "Who Are the Hebrew Israelites?" Hebrew Israelites are people of color, mostly African Americans, who view the biblical Israelites as their historic ancestors. For Hebrew Israelites, the transatlantic slave trade was foretold in the scriptures, and they understood those Africans who were enslaved in the Americas as Israelites, severed from their heritage. So, under this section, within this article titled, "Are They Recognized by Other Jews?" listen to the tone of this article. Are they recognized by other Jews? That depends on what recognize means. Most Israelites are not looking for validation or recognition, and in fact may not identify as Jews. Still, some Jewish American groups have sought to bring Israelites into the fold, but often suggest conversion, which many Israelites object to do. Some of those early efforts at outreach also failed to distinguish the Israelites from Jews of color who belong to mainstream denominations. And some African American Jews have been among sharpest critics of the Hebrew Israelites, both historically. Some African Americans have been among sharpest critics of the Hebrew Israelites. So in this article, the writer is recognizing that there are African American Jews, but the question is, are they considered converts or blood descendants? The writer made a point to show how our own people who converted to Judaism harshly criticized their own people in defense of Judaism. And so I want to also circle back to this quote from this article. Most Israelites are not looking for validation or recognition, and in fact may not identify as Jews. I believe the reason why so many Hebrew Israelites are not looking for validation through the word Jew is because some Jewish American groups have sought to bring Israelites into the fold, but often suggest conversions. Also, I want to highlight that most Israelites are not looking for validation or recognition, and in fact, may not identify as Jews. So I believe the reason why so many Hebrew Israelites are not looking to be validated through the word Jew is because we are starting to understand the truth about the origin and the usage of this word. We are coming to an understanding that we don't need to convert to a heritage that's rightfully ours to begin with. We are starting to understand that anyone can be a Jew, but everyone cannot be a blood descendant of Israel. So this is coming from their own publication. This is the Jewish Almanac, 1980, page 3. And this is what it says. Strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite or a Hebrew. The first Hebrews may not have been Jews at all. So even in their own publication, they, the Jewish community, as we know them, makes it clear that the word Jew does not correlate with the words Hebrew and Israelite. So let's see how it's defined according to the law of return. It says in section 4b, for the purpose of this law, Jew means a person who was born of a Jewish mother or has become converted to Judaism and who is not a member of another religion. So maybe it's because many of us are now understanding the influence of the Jewish community has on all media and how they, the Jewish community, have now defined this word is causing so much confusion to so many who are trying to fully understand the Holy Scriptures. Now, here's an example of the confusion. This is coming from the Etymology Dictionary online. This is the etymology of the word Jew. As you see here, late 12th century, it says, one of the Jewish race or religion. So my question is, when did the Jewish community were ever recognized as having multiple races? We know that Israel was and is a nation that consists of 12 tribes. We know that the southern kingdom was called Judah, in which it consisted of 3 tribes, which are Judah, Benjamin, and the Levites. However, according to the law of return, anyone can be a Jew if they denounce their belief system and convert to Judaism. Now, let's circle back to the publication Forward. All right, let's circle back to here. Okay, let's look at the history of this publication. The Forward is a legendary name in the American journalism, a revered institution in the American Jewish life. Launched as a Yiddish language daily newspaper on April 22nd, 1897. The Forward entered the den of New York's immigrant press as a defender of trade unionism and moderate democratic socialism. So did the talking points many are using against the Hebrew Israelites, did it begin with this publication? Guess what? The answer is no. But let's go to another publication called the Jewish Magazine, and there is an article titled "The Black Hebrew Israelites in Kansas" by Jerry Klinger, dated April 2013. So this article is 3 years older than the articles I referred to earlier. So I want you to pay attention. Listen to the overtones in this article. It says, September 13, 1892 was the date the first vision that Craige spoke of. God had come to him in the field and told him to lead his people, the black people, to the true religion, was to redeem Israel out of spiritual and mental bondage. The vision confused him. He asked God for more time, resisting the vision. The Civil War was very fresh in former slaves' minds. The biblical imagery of the children of Israel being liberated by God with a strong hand from bondage, and Moses as their leader, was well known and often repeated. The slave world had ended, but the world of black enslavement under prejudice, bigotry, the American Black Hebrew Israelite community is a shadow of its heyday in the United States during 1920s. Few American blacks identify as Jews, and even fewer identify with Ethiopia as being their cultural promised land. As the American Black Hebrew Israelites community declined, the Nation of Islam has grown in size, acceptability, and respectability, understood as another black religious expression of black nationalism by blacks and whites. Very few black Hebrew Israelites would have wanted to be known as Jews in the 1930s, especially in Hitler's Europe. Let me read that again so y'all can really get the understanding of what it's saying here and the overtones here. It says, he is saying, Jerry Klinger, very few black Hebrew Israelites would have wanted to be known as Jews in the 1930s, especially in Hitler's Europe. Now, I really want to read this quote again as Jerry Klinger compares the black Hebrew Israelites to the Nation of Islam. All right? As the American Black Hebrew Israelite community declined, the Nation of Islam has grown in size, acceptability, and respectability, understood as another black religious expression of black nationalism by blacks and whites. I want to read again another key quote made by this article. few American blacks identify as Jews, and even fewer identify with Ethiopia as being their cultural promised land. So what Jerry Klinger is saying is that the American blacks are the descendants of Ham by way of his son Ethiopia, in which his name is actually Cush. So should we be surprised at the negative overtones of this article and the others that I've read? Should we be surprised that someone from the Jewish community is using the media to further push a negative narrative about the Negroes in the United States? Who started the teachings that having dark skin is a curse? Who created the teachings that all blacks are descended from Ham and not fully human? Who created the institution of race? Who is connected to almost every reference Jimmy Butts used for the article he wrote? Each book he referenced has at least one person from the Jewish community connected to it. Nevertheless, this is coming out of the Jewish Talmud. Now pay attention. This is coming from the Talmud Mas Barakoth 58a. Blessed be he who makes strange creatures. An objection was raised if one see a Negro, a very red or very white person, a hunchback, a dwarf, or a dropsical person, he says, blessed be he who makes strange creatures. Our rabbis taught on seeing an elephant, an ape, or a long-tailed ape. One says, blessed is he who makes strange creatures. Let's go to the Talmud, Mas Sanhedrin 108a. Now let's see what it says here. It says, our rabbis taught 3 copulated in the ark, and they were all punished, the dog, the raven, and Ham. The dog was doomed to be tied. The raven expectorates his seed into his mate's mouth, and Ham was smitten in his skin. Now, when we go to the footnote number 34, this is what it says. An example, from him descended Cush, or the Ethiopian, the Negro who is black skinned.
What we want to talk about first is what they believe. So the ancient Hebrews were black. This is what they believe. They believe that the ancient Hebrews were black and that African Americans are their descendants. Okay? So if you have any knowledge or if you have any awareness of the Bible and the book of Jeremiah, they believe that it is seen that it's claiming black ethnic features. So in Jeremiah 8, this is what they're using to support this claim.
Quadar. It means to be ashy, dark colored, all right? By implication, to mourn, be black or blackish, be or make, dark or darken, all right? So that's what this word means. But I want you to make a note of the primary meaning of this word. It means to be what? Ashy. It means to be ashy, dark colored. So this is a primitive root word. So quadar, to be ashy, an example, dark colored. So let me give you the visual of what this means, okay? So let's go to Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 2. It says this, Judah mourneth Abal, in the gates thereof languish Amal, they are black, quadar, unto the ground, Tazah, and the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. Let me read it again. Judah mourneth Abal, and the gates thereof languish Amal, they are black, quadar, unto the ground, Tazah, and and the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. Now, Jeremiah chapter 14 verse 2 is describing Judah's physical appearance during a famine. Now, let me give you an illustration so that way you can really get a visual of what this is saying. So you can see exactly what it means to be quadar. In other words, ashy black or ashy dark. Right here is a picture, right, of some melanated people in the Sudan, right? They, at this time, were dealing with a famine, right? No water, no food, and you can see that what? They are still dark. They are still melanated, right? But you notice that their skin has an ashiness to it. So that's what it means, and this is a visual of what quadar actually means, okay? Now, let's go back to the scriptures so I can give you proper clarity so you understand that this is a famine, okay? Verse 3, and their nobles have sent their little ones to the waters. They came to the pits and found no water. Mayam. They returned with their vessels, Kalai, empty. Rayaquam. Verse 4, because the ground, Adamah, is chapped, Kata, for there was no rain in the earth. The plowmen were ashamed. They covered their heads.